And this is where the magic happens.
So tell me how it feels to be alive. Tell me how it feels to feel the tide.
Getting your lead vocal to sit properly in the mix can feel impossible at times. There are literally thousands of plugins out there, thousands of vocal mixing tutorials, so it's natural if you feel like you don't know where to start. But today we're going to put all of that noise to one side, and I'm going to show you the core principles behind the vocal chain that I use on pretty much every single mix that I work on. This vocal chain lives in my template and it's featured on mixes that have ended up on TV, radio, Netflix, video games, all kinds of stuff. It's very simple. Every single step has a purpose and it works in pretty much any scenario. And if you said to me you can only mix with one vocal chain for the rest of your life, this would likely be the chain that I choose because it's so simple, it's so effective, and it's so easy to repeat time and time again for great results. So let me show you what it's all about. So I have this vocal here. This is a track called To Be Alive by Luke Gittins. And the vocals recorded, I think, on an SM7. You can hear there's like a few things that need cleaning up. It doesn't totally sit in the mix, but we're going to fix all of that using this chain.
We met on a Friday night, and the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides almost every night. I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune. So tell me how it feels to be alive. Tell me how it feels to feel the tide.
So the first step for me in any vocal chain is always to fix the issues that are present in the vocal and identify what they are first. And in this case, we've got quite a lot of low mid build up. There's a bit of mid-range, upper mid-range harshness. And then we have these peaks which are jumping up and down. So we need to do a bit of cleaning up, removing some of those frequencies and just making the dynamic a little bit more consistent without squashing it to begin with. Now, the first thing to note is that the plugins that I'm going to show you here don't actually matter that much. It's all about the order of the process and the steps that we take to achieve this vocal sound. I'm going to be using plugins now that are cheap, that are easy to swap out if you've got something you prefer. But they're plugins that I know are effective and plugins that I've used for years. So the first plugin that I'm going to use to do this kind of cleaning up is going to be the R channel from Waves. It does everything that I want it to do, and I actually think the EQ sounds really good. It's very smooth and it's very good at kind of cleaning up any junk. So let's take a look at these problem areas I was talking about.
We met on a Friday night, where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides almost every night. I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune. We met on a Friday night, where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon.
Cool, that's already cleaning up the vocal just by taking out this sort of 2.5, 3K area, dipping some of that harshness out and this boxiness in the low mids, as well as cleaning up everything in that low end. What I tend to like to do is leave in the sort of 250 hertz area because that does add a bit of warmth, and if we cut all that away, then it tends to sound quite thin. So I always like to leave a bit of that in. Then the next stage is just to add a bit of compression, and this is why I like R channel, because it has the RVox compressor built into it, which is really effective for just smoothing out the vocal. So I'm just going to bring the attack down a touch so it's a bit faster. I'm going to set the auto release, and then we're just going to knock just a couple of dB, maybe 3-4 dB off of the vocal just to smooth it out.
We met on a Friday night, where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides almost every night. I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune. So tell me how it feels to be alive. Tell me how it feels to feel the tide. Slip it through your fingers, know that I won't let you down.
So straight away, it's feeling smoother, it's feeling tighter. The vocal's not totally jumping out. Obviously, we're still a long way off the finished vocal, but this is the starting point. It's just to correct any issues that exist in the vocal. A lot of people talk about additive EQ versus subtractive EQ and what should you use, when should you use it, blah, blah, blah. I don't really believe in additive or subtractive EQ as two separate things. I think EQ is just EQ. But what I would say is the first thing that you need to do is always to remove anything that shouldn't be there before you start boosting things and adding things. Because if I start boosting and adding loads of stuff to this, but I haven't corrected the issues, all I'm going to do is amplify the issues. So the first thing is identify the issues and get rid of them. And that's exactly what we've done here. What I might do is just add a tiny little bump in this top end as well, because I do really like the sound of the high shelf from this EQ. I know it's a pretty generic EQ, but it does have a sound because of the way that the high shelf interacts with the stuff below it. I do like how this works. So I like to just boost a little bit sometimes with the REQ shelf. So let's just try boosting about a dB or so and just see if it opens the vocal up a touch.
We met on a Friday night, where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides.
Yeah, cool. It's subtle, but it does just open the vocal up a touch and bring it forward a bit more. Now, speaking of bringing the vocal forward a bit more, this is always the next stage for me and the first kind of true stage of processing. My personal taste and my style is vocals that are up front. I like vocals that feel like they're right in the ear of the listener, that you can hear everything, you can hear all the details. I love those kind of vocals. And this vocal chain is designed to give us that upfront sound because it's the style that I really love. And if you listen to my mixes, you'll hear that a lot of the time, the vocals are really sort of upfront and crisp and clear because that's just something that I really like when I'm mixing vocals. So in order to achieve this, the first thing that I like to do is insert an 1176 style compressor after this vocal cleanup. And in this case, I'm just going to use the CLA 76 from Waves because it's a classic. I know it works and it has a sound that I really like. There are hundreds of 1176 emulations out there and you can spend hours online reading debates about which is the most accurate and which blah, 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 blah. To me, it's just boring. I'm not interested in any of that. I just want something that works, and I know that this works. Often, for me, it's a choice between this and the Purple Audio MC77 is also a great 1176 style compressor that does what I want it to do, but sometimes I feel it's a bit oversaturated and a bit too thick. So I'm just going to use this. Like I say, it's a classic, and I know it works.
We met on a Friday night, where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides. Almost every night I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune. So tell me how it feels to be alive. Tell me how it feels to feel the tide slipping through your fingers. Know that I won't let you down. And darling, if you ever cut me loose, just know that I'll be waiting here for you. And I will lay my restless heart on you tonight. We met on a Friday night, where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon.
So I'm not afraid to hit that hard. I want it to be really compressed, really upfront. I think that's part of the sound that I like, is having it in your face. And we achieve that by having a fast release, which is allowing the compressor to continuously react, and having a sort of medium fast attack, which is allowing the very transience of the vocal through. So you still get the diction of the vocal, but it's compressing pretty much everything else, and that gives the sense that the vocal is clearer, it's more upfront, and it's more in your face. And then I always like to follow this with an LA2A style compressor, something a bit slower and a bit thicker. And this is nothing groundbreaking. You've probably seen loads of tutorials where people go EQ it, then 1176, then LA2A. But it's tried and tested and it works, and there's a reason for that. So in terms of choosing the right plugin for this, I actually really like the Logic Vintage Opto. I think this has a nice smooth sound to it. I tend to set the ratio to about 3:1, and then some medium attack, also release, and then just knock a few dB off just to tighten it up, just to thicken it up. If you're not a Logic user, you can use any LA2A compressor. It doesn't really matter. I do like the UAD Tube LA2A. I think this sounds really good. It's got a nice thick sound to it. And to be honest, I probably would use that as well. But in this case, we're just going to use the Logic stock one because I think it sounds really good.
We met on a Friday night, where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides almost every night. I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune. So tell me how it feels to be alive. Tell me how it feels to feel the tide slipping through your fingers. Know that I won't let you down. Darling, if you ever cut me loose, just know that I'll be waiting here for you. And I will lay my restless heart on you tonight.
The principle behind all of this for me is about achieving a vocal which is very consistent, which sounds nice and thick. It's tight in terms of its dynamic, and then we can use automation to push it further forward or further back in the mix depending on what the song calls for in certain sections. But for me, I like to achieve something which is the foundation of it is solid and it's not jumping up and down. One thing that is happening now though is we're starting to get some sibilance, so we need to use some de-essing just to calm that down. And people often talk about like whereabouts in the chain should you put a de-esser, and everyone has an opinion on what they think is right or wrong. And lots of people will say, you have to put the de-esser first in the chain. And other people will say, you have to put the de-esser last in the chain. And what I would say is that both of those, to me, are kind of irrelevant. I put the de-esser in the chain when it sounds to me like I need to put a de-esser in the chain. And now it sounds to me like I need to put a de-esser in the chain. If I feel like the vocal straight off the bat is quite sibilant, then I'll put a de-esser first in the chain. But if I don't feel like it needs one at the beginning, I'm not going to put one in. And similarly, if I do all the processing and get to the end and go, okay, now it needs a de-esser, then I'll put a de-esser at the end of the chain. I just react to whatever I'm hearing. And right now I'm hearing that I think it needs a de-esser, so let's put one in. I'm going to use the Waves de-esser because it's simple. I've been using it for years. I know it works and it's not too intrusive.
We met on a Friday night where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides almost every night. I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune.
Cool. Don't overthink it. It's a de-esser. So for me, that's pretty much the core of the processing already. Now it's just a case of adding a bit of spice and getting it to sit in the mix properly. So let's take a listen to before and after this processing so far and see what difference we've made.
We met on a Friday night where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides almost every night. I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune. So tell me how it feels to be alive. Tell me how it feels to feel the tide slipping through your fingers. Know that I won't let you down.
So it's already much more consistent and it's sitting in the mix much better. You might say, oh, when you enable the compressor, it gets louder, blah, blah. That's because I'm level matching to the loudest peaks, not the quietest peaks. So when I bypass the compressor in these quiet peaks, then naturally it's going to drop in volume. And like I say, that's because I'm always matching the compressor to the loudest peaks just so I can get the most volume out of it all the time. So before anybody goes, oh, your compressor is not level matched properly, it is, but I'm level matching to the loudest peaks, not the quietest ones. So we have the de-esser in the chain to get rid of some of that harshness and that sibilance. What I also like to do is add a bit of tape saturation at this point, just to give the vocal some extra thickness and give it a bit of character. And a plugin that I love for this is the Gem Tape Desk from Overloud. I think it's a great plugin. It's often overlooked and it's really good for just ironing out any harshness and any peaks in the vocal and just giving it a bit of extra thickness and character. So let's take a listen to what this is doing.
We met on a Friday night where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides almost every night. I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune.
So we have these three different models down here, which is like console models. So we have the S4000, which is the SSL style. We have the N80, which is a Neve style, and T88, which is a Trident style. I like this T88 because it opens up the top end a little bit. The Neve gives it this sort of mid-forward presence, and the SSL is a bit more transparent. I like the T88 in this case. I think it's just opening the vocal nicely. We can flick between the different tape speeds, and obviously if you go to 7.5 IPS, it's going to give us like a darker sound. 30 IPS is going to preserve the top end. I like 15 because it's kind of in the middle. It just helps to smooth that vocal out, give it a bit of extra thickness and character. There's not a lot to say about the tape saturation here. It's really just a bit of sort of finalizing in that chain before we move on to the next stage.
We met on a Friday night where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides. Almost every night I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune.
I really like what that's doing. So when we talk about the principles of this so far, we have the R channel, which is cleaning it up. We have the 1176, which is bringing the vocal forward, setting it above the whole mix and giving us that sort of in-your-face feeling that I really like that I was talking about earlier. And we're using this opto compressor, the LA2A style compressor, to give it a bit more thickness and to control any peaks that are still jumping up and down. Where we're using that fast attack and release, sometimes you can end up with still some inconsistencies in the vocal. So this is just to iron that out. Then the de-esser, obviously to remove any sibilance. And then the gem tape desk, just to give it a bit of character and remove any additional harshness. And then just to add in a bit of that sort of compression, that natural compression that comes from tape saturation. So now that we've got to this point, the next thing is to work on the top end of the vocal and work on opening it up so it sits perfectly in the mix. And this move is kind of what I would refer to as like my signature move, in the sense that this is something that I do all the time. I love doing this, is to create a send. So we're going to send this track to a bus here, which we're going to make a mono bus. And we're going to set this to pre-fader because I don't want any level changes here to affect the input to this signal chain. And then what we're going to do is we're going to brighten this bus to the point where it sounds horrible on its own. And then we're going to blend that back in. And that's going to give us a really nice open top end. And this is a really good way of getting the vocal to sit in the mix where we want it to sit. So I'm going to call this bright. I'm just going to call it bright, keep it simple. Then I'm going to insert an instance of the Safari Pedals Falcon Air EQ plugin. And this is a new plugin that I've gotten really into. I used to use like, I think, some kind of Slate Digital plugin or something for this, but I really like the Falcon Air. You might say, well, this has got a blend control, so why are you putting on a bus? Why don't you just use it in series and use the mix control to control the amount? But the reason for that is because we're also going to insert a compressor after this to smash this a bit so that it sounds really gritty and that it sounds like thicker. All will be revealed. But there's a reason why I'm doing this on a bus. I'm not just within the blend control of the plugin. So what we're going to do is we're going to crank this. We're going to be a bit crazy with this, and it's going to sound horrible when you hear it, but we'll blend it in. Trust me.
We met on a Friday night where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides.
So what we're listening to at the minute is just this bright bus. And like I say, it sounds really kind of horrible, but it's supposed to, because when we blend it in, it's not going to sound that way. So let's also add in a compressor. Again, I'm going for an 1176 style. I really like this vintage FET for this one, because it's fast and it's gritty and it's dirty. It's just the Logic stock one. Again, if you're not using Logic, you can just use any 1176. It really doesn't matter. The point is we want fast attack and release to catch any of the super spittiness of this and squash it right down.
We met on a Friday night where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides. Almost every night I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune. We met on a Friday night.
Cool, now let's blend it in. And this is where the magic happens.
We met on a Friday night where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides almost every night. I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune. So tell me how it feels to be alive. Tell me how it feels to feel the tide slipping through your fingers. Know that I won't let you down. And darling, if you ever cut me loose, just know that I'll be waiting here for you. And I will lay my restless heart on you tonight.
You can hear what a difference that makes to bring the vocal forward. It gives it a clarity that it didn't have before, and it helps it to sit above the mix and sit kind of perfectly where we want it to in the mix. You might say, why not just use an EQ and boost the top end? But the thing is, we're compressing it, we're making it super tight, and we're giving it a character that you can't get just from an EQ. That 1176 compression is slamming it, and it's keeping that top end really tight and really focused. And that's what allows the vocal to cut through and remain consistent. If I'm just boosting this with a high shelf or whatever on the original vocal chain, it's going to open up the top end, but it's not going to give us the same character. And this is just a process that I love doing. Whenever I blend it back in, it makes me go, oh yeah, that sounds really good. It's just a really effective way of getting the vocal to be clearer and sit forward in the mix. What we do have to bear in mind though is, like, if I turn this down now, because it's a pre-fade ascend, we're going to be left with just this bright vocal.
We met on a Friday night where the stars burn bright.
So we've got a couple of options there. We can either group this, so both of them end up in the same group, and then they work off the same fader like so. Or what I prefer to do is actually just create a track for this bright bus and then send both of these to a separate bus, or in this case a summing stack. And then that just becomes like the lead vocal stack here, lead vocal bus. And then we can do any additional processing or send this to reverbs and whatever, automate this. All of this is now being controlled by this fader. Often I don't actually add any more processing if it doesn't need it, but that just allows us to sort of treat both of these as one whole thing.
We met on a Friday night where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon.
Now the vocal brightener does introduce a bit of noise to the vocal chain because we're boosting that top end so much. So a good way just to mask this a bit is just to send it to a reverb. So let's send it to an instance of like Valhalla Vintage Verb, for example, is often going to give us what we want. I just really like the default setting.
We met on a Friday night where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon.
And then let's also maybe just put it in a room a little bit as well. Waves True Verb is always a good room for me. I don't overthink this too much. I like to work quickly. I like a hall or a plate reverb with a vocal and a room reverb. Then maybe some delays and stuff just to sort of blend it all in. I'm not going to go too mad on the effects because we're not talking about effects today really. We're just talking about that main vocal chain, but I want to just demonstrate that just by adding a bit of reverb and maybe some delay to this, you can quickly get it to sit perfectly in the mix. Because of all the work that we've done on that track. So we've got a bit of reverb and delay on this vocal now, all coming from this lead vocal bus. Let's take a listen to the before and after. Have this dry vocal here. We're going to A-B this with the processed vocal down here with this very simple chain, a bit of brightening and a bit of delay and reverb. And you'll hear what a difference we've made. I've not done any automation to this. The next level after this would be to go in and automate it and get the level perfect. But you'll see what a difference this has made even without the automation.
We met on a Friday night where the stars burn bright. We danced under candlelight by the moon. Summer spent by firesides almost every night. I could hear our hearts sing to the same old tune. So tell me how it feels to be alive. Tell me how it feels to feel the tide slipping through your fingers. Know that I won't let you down. Darling, if you ever cut me loose, just know that I'll be waiting here for you. And I will lay my restless heart on you tonight.
So you can hear what a difference this has made with such a simple chain. There's an argument to say the vocal's a bit overcompressed and we cooked it a bit too much. But like I say, I like vocals that are in your face. We have gone quite far with this, but if you wanted to, just back the compression off and you're going to get a vocal which doesn't sit forward so much. It's going to sound a bit more natural, maybe a bit more pushback. Similarly, if you want to bring it even further forward, just crank the compression, dial it in a bit more. And that's what makes this vocal chain so effective. And this is why, as I said at the top, this exists in my template and I use it all the time for a reason, because it's so effective and it's so easy to use. So if you like this vocal chain and you want to use it on your mixes, then just steal it. Just copy what I've done in this video. I'll leave a comment below with links to all of the plugins that I've used in this video. So if you haven't got any of them and you want to check them out, then you can do that below on the links. Before you go, please do give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think and I'll see you soon.